In this video, we're going to be talking about the future of Frederick, Maryland, and major developments coming soon that will impact the economy, the culture, and the overall look and feel of one of the most popular places to move to in the entire state. Hey everyone, my name is Eddie Brady, a realtor here in Maryland, helping people just like you move to Frederick and the surrounding areas. And the reason I'm making this video is because so many of you are considering moving to Frederick and want to know what the city is going to look like after you move here. And while there are dozens of projects that are either permitted or in the initial phases of planning, 3 of them, I believe, have the biggest potential of impacting the city, and that's what we're going to cover in this video. And a lot has changed in Frederick since this map behind me was drawn back in 1860, and even since we moved to the Frederick area just about 10 years ago, the outskirts of town are barely recognizable. It used to be all farmland and rural areas, and now it's a sprawling city. There's neighborhoods popping up everywhere. So if you're considering moving to Frederick, it's important for you to know what Frederick might look like in another 10 years. And if you're not from the area, you should know that Frederick residents take their culture very seriously. So anything that threatens to change that culture or change the quality of life in Frederick is met with a pretty big reaction. But I pretty much never hear the locals talking about this first major development, which is the labs at Jefferson Technology Park. And the Jefferson Technology Park is going to have a major impact on the life sciences industry in Maryland. They're going to be building 2 massive 100,000 square foot research and development labs and 2 equally massive 145,000 square foot clean rooms, which if you aren't familiar, that's the places that they make pharmaceutical products. And why did they choose Frederick? Well, first, Maryland as a whole ranks as having the 4th highest amount of life science jobs, and if you factor in government sector, it's the 3rd highest. Maryland also has the 2nd highest amount of research and development jobs for this industry, and Frederick is the #1 place in Maryland for contracts awarded by the National Institutes of Health. Frederick is also #1 in concentration of employed doctoral scientists, #1 in gross number of biomedical professional workers in the US, and over $1 billion has been invested in this industry in Frederick alone over the past 36 months. You just have to look on the east side of the city to see this, where you have Riverside Research Park with the Frederick National Laboratory for Cancer Research, which is the leading edge of cancer research in the nation. And as you can tell from this development overview, they're barely getting started. So how is this development going to impact Frederick? Well, I would say it's not going to impact the look all that much. It's on the outskirts of town. It's in an area that people rarely go to. There's a residential community nearby called Harrington Terrace where there's a lot of townhomes that are newer and they're planning on building more, but I don't think that anyone really knows it's there unless they live there or have friends that they visit there. So as far as the look of the city goes, it's going to be pretty much left untouched. But this will impact the local economy in Frederick, and this is because the life sciences industry pays very high salaries. And when you have high salaries moving to an area, new construction builders notice that and they start to raise prices and build and cater towards that demographic. And once you have people with higher incomes moving into the Frederick area, in theory, you should have more disposable income that people are going to spend on local goods and services. And I'm sure we could come up with a long list of positives and negatives and how this will impact the city economically, but it's important to know that builders have already started to cater towards the young professional demographic in Frederick, and the next major development is doing just that, and that's the development of Renn Quarter by D.R. Horton. It's located just outside of downtown on the east side of the city, and this development is going to impact downtown in some pretty major ways. Not only are they building over 1,000 homes, but they're also adding over 31,000 feet of retail space in this new community. They're only about halfway through building this community and have about 2 more years to go. And they're building a mix of townhouses and single-family detached homes here. And for the townhouses, they're currently selling in the mid-400s, like the Carlton model here, and go up to the high 500s and low 600s for a model like the Primrose. And for the single-family houses, they start in the low 700s for the Alec model and go up to the high 700s for the Hampshire model. And one thing to remember is that new construction communities usually increase their prices as they go along, so I would expect next year for these prices to be totally different. But the size of this development is not the biggest thing impacting downtown Frederick, in my opinion. I think the biggest thing that's impacting downtown Frederick is that they're extending Carroll Creek Linear Park. And if you aren't familiar with Carroll Creek Linear Park, it is a Riverwalk style pathway that goes through the heart of downtown. It's the most popular place to visit in the city with walkways on both sides of the creek. It has restaurants on it, it has breweries and distilleries right on the creek, and it hosts dozens of huge events throughout the year. And on the west side, it connects to Baker Park, which is the largest park in the city, and on the east side, it currently dedicated dead ends at East Patrick Street, but the Renn Quarter development will extend it all the way to Monocacy Boulevard, and in this extension there will be a 78-acre open space park with walking trails and a 5K loop for planned 5Ks and races. And adding a 78-acre park to Frederick is a massive deal, just within walking distance of downtown at that. And you have to think a majority of the people that visit Frederick visit just to see Carroll Creek and a couple of the shops and restaurants right around it on Market Street. So this is a major driver for tourism, and it's going to have a major impact on the local economy. But the Renn Quarter development is not the biggest development coming to Frederick. There's an even larger development that residents are not happy about, and that's the Frederick Brickworks development on East Street. And the important thing about this site is it's located right at the major entrance into downtown Frederick. It's the most popular way to get into downtown, right on East Street, and this site sits on the corner as you enter downtown. And if you drive by it right now, you're likely going to see hundreds of pallets of mulch bags. It's been that way for years as a storage area for mulch. And before that, it was the site of the Frederick Brickworks company, which is where the development gets its name from. But with it being kind of an eyesore for the city and the company moving years ago to Monocacy Boulevard, developers have been eyeing up this site for years. And last year, the developer Greenberg Gibbons received initial approval from the city for a plan which would include up to 1,260 homes made up of apartments and townhouses and over 130,000 square feet of retail space. They said they're eyeing up one of the area's largest organic grocery store chains as a tenant and will have multiple shops and restaurants in the development. But since they have received that initial approval, they have run into some environmental issues on the site, which they're trying to work over with the city. It hasn't been going all that well, so this is far from a final plan. Who knows if it ever will happen, but there's a lot of momentum behind it, and if it does happen, it will impact the city in some major ways. Now, I follow a lot of local Frederick pages on Instagram and Facebook, and I read the comments of what people say about these developments, and this by far has the most negative feedback, and on most channels, they've had to disable the comments because of it, and that's because the downside of this development seems to outweigh the positives of this development. And some of the big problems that locals have with it is where it's located and how many residents will live there. Unlike Renn Quarter, which is on the outskirts of town and people are utilizing Monocacy Boulevard to travel, this is right downtown, right at the entrance on East Street, and people are worried about congestion here, they're worried about infrastructure, and one of the biggest problems that people have with this development is that it just doesn't match the style and charm of Frederick. Now, to be fair, Renn Quarter doesn't match the style and charm of Frederick either, but it's also not right at the entrance of the city, so it's no wonder that people are more up in arms about the Brickworks project, and I would be surprised if the Planning Commission does not open up another panel like they did last year for community residents to voice their opinions and their concerns. Now, what impact did that have last year? Not all that much, to be honest. Most residents said they didn't want it, most residents had a problem with it, and regardless, it was approved 3-2. So who knows what will happen if they open it again. I really hope they do regardless so the residents can speak their opinion on this project because it is a major development at the heart of the city. So those are the three major projects that I think will impact Frederick in major ways in the near future. Again, there are dozens of projects happening right now all across the city. I'll cover more of those in the future, but let me know in the comments what you think of these three projects. Which one do you think will have the biggest impact on the city? Which one do you hope does not happen? Which one do you hope does happen? Let me know in the comments below. And if you came to this video because you're thinking of moving to Frederick or the surrounding areas, I would be happy to help you with your move. The best way to reach out to me is go into the description or the comments below and click on that link to schedule a one-on-one call with me. It's never too soon to start planning, but if you just have a quick question, you're just curious about something in the Frederick area, you could also contact me at my cell phone number below or my email. Ask the question, no pressure. I'll be happy to answer that for you. And as always, if you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe so that you stay up to date on all of my videos about moving to Maryland.